It's my pleasure to introduce the distinguished bureaucrat delivering our memorial lecture this evening, Dr. A. Ravindra. Dr. Ravindra is an IAS officer who has seen the city of Bangalore evolve, expand, struggle, thrive, and exhaust through the several roles he has held. Chairman of the Bangalore Development Authority, Commissioner of the then Bangalore City Municipal Corporation, and Chief Secretary to the Government of Karnataka. In each of these roles, he has built capacity and has been known for co-opting citizens in resolving urban challenges. Dr. Ravindra holds a doctorate in urban studies and has authored books on urban policy and Bangalore. And he is currently chairman at the Center for Sustainable Development. Please welcome Dr. Ravindra for a talk titled Our Cities on Fire.
Well, good evening to all of you, and first of all, let me thank Mr. Uday Vijayan for inviting me to deliver the Beyond Carlton Memorial Lecture this 9th year after the tragedy. Can you? First, let me say that the focus here today and in general about Beyond Carlton is always about fire accidents, buildings catching fire. But I thought today we'll go beyond Carlton literally and look at some of the other aspects, which cause, a loss of lives, injuries in the city. It's not merely fire, but there are certain other things also, so that the whole picture is becomes relevant to public safety as such. This is the Carlton tragedy thing, which happened on 23rd February, exactly 9 years back, 23rd February, where 9 died and all. It's a well-known thing. Next. My mind goes back to what was called, I think not many of you may know, a circus tragedy called Venus Circus tragedy. That was in the year 1981. It was a circus tent as usual, I don't know whether you people remember about the old circuses. Nowadays I don't find many of them here. Otherwise every year some circus used to take place in Bangalore when I was still in the school, college and all that. So here it was a very gory tragedy, the whole thing caught fire and as many as 92 people died and 300 were injured, and it was, of course, you see, the reasons for all such tragedies, fire tragedies, always is attributed to either short circuit or cigarette being thrown and all that. We really don't know what exactly triggered it. But this is one thing, and I also remember it specifically because one of my own distant relatives also died in that accident. Well, this is generally, I thought I'll go back to 1980s. Next one. So I thought, as I said, just very briefly give a background about how cities in general have contributed both to good and bad in that sense. It's the growth of cities and how they affect us. These are the four heads. In the first place, we must all remember that cities are growing, urban population is growing, and therefore we must be prepared for all such eventualities. The very fact that Bangalore particularly is growing, so you will find that urban population as such was very low in the beginning of the 19th and 20th century. It was just 10%. Then it became in 2011 about 32%. Maybe now it's about 1/3 or say 40% of the population. But in numbers, about more than 400 million people live in cities in India. So that is the important thing. Now, Bangalore itself has shown very rapid growth, as we all know. People who are much older or who keep visiting Bangalore every now, even Bangaloreans who are outside now, whenever they come back, even after a couple of years, they say, "Oh, it has changed so much." So the population has grown from less than 4 million in 90s. Now it is 12 or 13 million, 1.3 crores, and it is expected to grow to 15 million and so on. This is just to put the issues in background. Now, in the first place, we must remember the cities are very important. They are engines of economic growth. So whether it's industry or higher education or whatever, whatever contributing to economic growth, cities have become inevitable. And these are the issues I thought I'll touch upon, which are very relevant to public safety. The roads, transportation, water, electricity, and telecom. So this is a basic infrastructure required to run a city. Now you look at these things, so forget the building fire for a while. You look at where accidents, you see, even the roads itself, the road infrastructure is not good. Potholes, where people have, especially two-wheelers and all, have hit potholes, and there have been deaths also apart from injuries. And this is a story well known in Bangalore, which keeps occurring frequently. Potholes are filled, potholes are reappear, and it goes on. Similarly, on footpaths, we know how dangerous it is and how cars are parked, vehicles are parked on the footpaths. And of course, traffic congestion, we all know, and we are all experiencing these things, but these are also contributing to deaths and injuries. This is the point that I would like to make. Next. Now, road accidents, if you take, which is the highest, which results in the largest number of lives lost, it is said that every 10 minutes at least there are 3 deaths occur in India. That was in 2017. And the map just gives you an idea of where it's more and where it's less state-wise. Next. Now, number of deaths, if you see, it's almost about 1,50,000. This may include highway deaths, roads, apart from cities. But that is the thing, in 2 years in Bangalore, you found more than nearly 10,000 deaths and 58,000 injuries. So this is a very major cause of deaths and accidents. Now this, I deliberately brought this map or pictures because, see, as cities grow, you find that buildings keep increasing, and we pay little attention to nature, in the sense the trees, the parks, the lakes that we now complain in Bangalore. We find in 1973, it was just 8% was occupied by what is called the built area, and nearly 70% was, it is all natural environment. So every year it has gone on decreasing. The built area is increased now so much that in the so it is actually reversed. So very little built area, more of in built area, which is about 70-80%, very little of the natural environment. So buildings, that is the thing. So in more the buildings, the more the risks like safety, etc. Next. Now, apart from this is another important thing. That's, for instance, what is called urban flooding. Whenever there are very heavy rains, or of course, even Bangalore is relatively free compared to coastal cities. You find this. We all remember what happened in Kerala last year, Cochin and all that, very heavy floods and so many lives lost. And similarly, even some other cities, Mumbai, Chennai particularly, they are literally turned into rivers, the roads themselves, and we find so many lives lost. Urban waste, of course, as it is said that India is drowning in its own waste. We all know the problem of garbage and solid waste management. So it's not just managing that, but waste is also causes a lot of health problems. It's the river. This is the river Ganga, and where you find that there is more waste than clean water. Polluted rivers, as they say. In Bangalore itself, the Mandoor incident where so much of garbage was heaped that it resulted in agitation and also in serious health problems. That is so these landfills, quarries, we don't realize, even within the cities you will find a lot of such quarries where waste is thrown, and it affects the health of the citizens. Now this is a very, very important thing, which we usually don't realize at all. There are so many manholes in cities. In Bangalore itself, there are said to be about 2 lakh manholes. And we do find, I couldn't put this, but I found in Bangalore itself last year also, some 3 persons lost their lives. See, whenever it is to be cleaned and overhauled, people manually, they enter into these sewage, traps. It is called a sewage trap and held to hole, as they say. 3 laborers died. That was in Dombivli in Mumbai last year. Every now and then you find this happening. It is one of the most obnoxious things. Why human beings have to enter literally sewage and excreta and then clean it up. But it does lead to tragedies. Next. Now I come back to buildings and fire. You see, one of the major reasons why, whether it is fire accident, any other problems in buildings, is that there are a lot of illegal constructions. Especially in Bangalore, I find there very little regard is paid to the question of building or constructions according to rules and regulations. After all, why are there building regulations? And there are so many rules, like whether it is setbacks, height of the building, so on and so forth. But it is said that maybe 80 to 90% of the buildings are all. So some deviation, some illegality or the other. Let us forget the small things; they are minor. But there are a number of buildings. We find, for instance, there are supposed to be setbacks for all big buildings. In the commercial areas, roads, you hardly find any kind of setback. And that is required for any fire force equipment to come and move around. So how do fire equipments even reach a particular height if the proper provision is not made? So this is one of the, I think, most serious problems that accounts for not merely fire, building collapses, for instance, especially in Mumbai. I think even recently we found even under construction they collapse. That means you are not paying attention to either the quality of the building or safety issues, and so many workers die. Now again, fire tragedies, I thought I'll just go back a little. I was trying to look at which are all the major tragedies. Upahar cinema, if you remember, in Delhi, it was one of the big tragedies, and that happened in 1997. There, we found that when it was that famous cinema called Border, if you remember, when that was being screened, about 59 people died and more than 100 were injured. This happened a few years back. Amri Hospital in there again 90 people died. This is another hospital. Yeah, next. I don't know how many remember. Again, one of the worst tragedies was in Kumbakonam in Tamil Nadu. It was a school building. I have given different, because one hospital, one school, like that. It's a school fire where 94 school children died. One of the most tragic things that happened. It was similarly there, Dabwali, that was another marriage hall. That is in Mumbai. That's 400 people died. That is a very, very terrible thing. 95. So there are some examples of the other kinds of, and the kind of accidents that happen everywhere. So in summary, the type of unnatural deaths in cities, what I am saying is in cities, beyond buildings, beyond Carlton, these are the types of things. Drowning, as I said, in manholes or floods and all that. Of course, fire accidents, and falls, people fall on footpaths and while crossing and so on and so on. But the maximum number of accidents is traffic. You will find that's what happens, and several other smaller causes. So this, in short, is something that we need to pay attention apart from fire accidents in buildings. That's what that was the main reason I thought I should. Now, apart from these, another big killer, which is a slow killer, is air pollution. You will find that air pollution is nowadays in some cities it is more visible, and some it is less. For instance, in Delhi it becomes very clear, especially during winter, that smog and all that, and people literally feel, and some people I have known people leaving Delhi in winter and coming down to other cities, and it is so bad. So the air that we breathe, the toxicity, for the past decade, data shows that Bangalore, it has worsened, although it's not the worst. Chennai, very strangely I find it's pretty high. So anyway, the fact is that air pollution is increasing. We are breathing more and more impure air, and in Bangalore itself we know the type of diseases, especially respiratory diseases in Bangalore, asthma, bronchitis, and especially for children and all. It's been there for long. That is this is just impact on human. This is only the distribution across states. So overall, it is said that cities are a big health hazard. So this is what we need to remember. See, even in tragedies like buildings, fire accidents, there is two types. One is where people die, they get killed. I think what the people who get injured, I think that is certainly a much more painful thing, especially burns, and you just can't do anything later and all that. That survival. That is something which we need to pay attention to. So it's a health hazard in many respects. This is, as you know, Vilandur and Varthur, where a lake catching fire is something you have not heard of, but when that has happened in Bangalore. Because the story of Vilandur. This is Varthur. Finally, this is my focus. Finally, saying that. Our effort should be beyond Carlton. I think it's a question of moving towards safety, public safety. And I think I must congratulate Mr. Uday and his team for all, what Gopal Devanalli presented. They have taken a number of measures towards public safety. I am so happy that it is there. But I would say, there are few things, few suggestions I thought, many things that you said you have been taking steps, fire safety plan and all that. I think the fire safety plan should become part of the city plan, or what we call the master plan. We have till now probably we have not done that. As I remember, we have been associated with city plans and master plans. So maybe one of your recommendations could be that what you prepare itself could really become one chapter there with whatever modifications that are required. So it should become part of city planning. That is my idea. Secondly, I think the real problem is that people, and also whether they are builders or other citizens as a whole, we need to develop some respect for law, because law compliance is a big casualty in anywhere in India. Not merely in cities, anywhere. On almost everything, we have little respect for law, and even if you take something like traffic movement, we take it casually. Although the traffic police claim that they are collecting more and more fine every year. Their revenues are going up, and every year, they are proud to say that we have collected some 30 crores, 40 crores every year and all that. So my question is that if you are collecting more fine, if you are levying more penalty, traffic violation should come down. That is not happening. So traffic violations are keeping on increasing, which shows you are very indifferent, you are apathetic. Not merely, it's not just a question of following the law or the rules. It is a question of you are not caring for your own fellow citizens. So when you cross and you commit an accident, somebody else you go and hit, that person also falls down, either there is a death or an injury, or you create a traffic congestion, isn't it? In your junctions, especially when there are no traffic lights, no one cares for the other. So everyone wants to come and overtake as quickly as possible. It's not even minutes but seconds. We don't want to wait for a few seconds to let the other man pass, other vehicle pass. So this is a very important thing, that unless that consciousness about respecting the law and respecting the other fellow citizens comes, I think whatever you do, things will continue to be bad. Maintenance of buildings is another thing. Again, I am glad. I think that's you are going into the past and trying to do a kind of an audit of buildings. Safety audit, for instance. Probably maybe you can build that history of buildings. The older the building, the more difficult to maintain. In general, in India, we don't have what may be called maintenance culture. We are very good at building, especially public buildings. Government spends enormous amounts of money putting up certain very big structures, beautiful buildings, but later you will find outside it looks grand. Once you go inside, you find the maintenance is so poor, and especially with reference to safety matters, which should be a kind of annual thing. We find, for instance, maybe big buildings also have certain fire safety equipments are there, but when a fire has occurred, you find they become non-functional. That means you are not caring to maintain them. So periodically, that even whatever equipments you have, or whatever the safety maintenance aspects, you will have to revisit and see that they are in place. So maintenance is something that is extremely important. Not merely buildings, whether they are roads or any other infrastructure. That is the more important. Of course, as I showed you, the traffic is becoming so bad that I think people also need to cultivate the habit of not using their own car. I won't say don't own cars, that's not possible. I think almost probably everyone here has some kind of an automobile vehicle. It may be a car, it may be a two-wheeler, whatever it is. They are required here because long distances commuting and all that. But we need to learn to use more of public transport or even intermediate transport. Use an Ola nowadays. You have that advantage or something, and keep your own car. I mean, don't try to use. So more public transport, less private transport. Because the other thing is, the more cars that you take to buildings, functions, you don't know where to park. It's all right, a building like here, fire safety office, you have some. But everywhere else you go, you're invited to functions, even marriage halls, for instance. You don't know where to park. This is the thing, So you need to rethink. I think radically we need to change our thinking about the use of motor vehicles. And speaking of cars, I think no bigger reminder than what happened in the Euro show today. Suddenly, imagine 300 cars catching fire. That is the figure, the latest available. We still don't know the correct count. If you had seen the pictures on the TV, some of you might have seen, it is so awful. All cars lined up and then burnt. Why? Maybe it tells us a reminder that you better be careful of using too many cars. You imagine instead of so many cars there, the cars was far less. I believe where it caught fire was called gate number 5. We don't know in other gates how many vehicles were there. If they are all reduced, less parking space and more safety. But certainly, so I think that's certainly a very, very big reminder about that. And it can spread. Fortunately, it is a huge open space and it didn't spread to other buildings and all, affecting human lives. It is confined to the cars. But still, imagine the plight of the car owners. It's not merely they have lost a car, as it was shown. See, so many people would have kept their documents inside the car. Your driving license, your insurance policy, sometimes many other things. You would have even kept your credit cards and this and that. Even to claim insurance is going to be a serious problem for them. So this is the sort of thing that happens. And of course, as I said, manage waste efficiently. I will not go into it. The more efficiently you manage waste or reduce waste, they're much better health in the city, I would say. I think it's got repeated. Just go back. One thing I wanted to say was that, if you look at that right side picture, I don't know, it's very visible. Today, I think technology is something we need to look at, in managing a city in general and even for all this. See, now with modern artificial intelligence, it's changing again, it's kind of revolutionizing everything. Now, the use of robots, that is a robo. I believe from what I have read and gathered the information, gradually you can have robots which can come in and in place of human beings trying to put out or control fire. They can really go in and it's not really not used, if I am wrong, if I am right. It is coming in, and maybe in some other countries they are trying out, and there are a lot of lot of robos coming. That is something that we need to. And similarly, on this side, you will find drones. Now you find almost every day something about drones, and drones, I believe, can come in, actually enter into the fire scene and even investigate, what we are trying to find out now, what is the cause, this, that, and short circuit. So drones can certainly, find out, they can study and the causes and what's exactly is happening right at that moment. So probably these will take some time, but I think we should become conscious about the need to use modern technology in a bigger scale. Not only for this one, for almost anything that I pointed out, you have, technology solutions. But nevertheless, ultimately it is the human being. We need to decide to do things, and human behavior is certainly more important. Let me say, this is, I believe, some years back. It is not here, in another country. Competition was held on this, the preventing fire and fire public safety. This won a prize. Safe spaces mean everyone can move without fear. Before I conclude, I thought I'll just I should also mention this one, amongst the measures taken by the government itself. I think I've not put it down here. For instance, I think we should compliment or pay tribute to the fire force, authorities, and we usually forget. We are always, we concentrate or focus on the tragedy. This happened, so many people died and all. So every time an incident happens, the fire force people rush, and so we should also remember, because of their intervention, so many lives would have been saved. So tragedies would have been much bigger if not for the fire force department, and they work in anonymity. Nobody remembers them, nobody knows. But I think this is an occasion where we should try to remember the fire force officials, and also so many other, even citizens, unknown people go rush and all that. So that is also another important thing that we need to remember. I am happy that Beyond Carlton is trying to collaborate with the government, fire force department, BBMP, and the others. See, they have also, there is an act that was passed, I don't know how many of you know, called Karnataka Public Safety Measures Enforcement Act 2017. It's very recent. If you have not seen it, I think you better get hold of a copy of that act along with rules and regulations and all. So according to this act, for instance, installation of CCTV cameras has now been mandatory in all commercial and industrial establishments, and number of other buildings, be the educational institutions, schools, hospitals, bus stands, railway stations. Of course, we do find a lot of CCTV cameras, but not all of them may have, because we know how useful CCTV is. This is just one of the major provisions I thought I'll highlight. There will be many other detailed provisions about how to prevent fire, what are the safety precautions, and even, as I said, even fire safety equipment. For instance, the exit points. These are the things, and we certainly need, the people need to be educated. Awareness, as it was said. I think one of the most important things that need to be done is creating awareness amongst, especially in people staying in apartment buildings, commercial buildings, whether they are working. So let us say about what the provisions of the Karnataka Fire Safety Prevention Act, what are the rules and what are the practices, Of course, we have also a disaster management department in the government. They do hold periodically certain drills and all that, to even mock drills in big buildings to say, what people should do once there is an emergency, a fire, or whatever it is. So these are the some of the ideas I thought I'll put together on this occasion. And finally, before concluding, I thought I'll end with a quote from the Vedas. The Rig Veda. We have a tradition where we worship nature. The fact that we are ignoring nature today, I think, is also one of the big causes why many tragedies and calamities occur. So there are floods and fires and all sorts of things. So this is an invocation to Agni. So after all, it's fire is also Agni. It is also looked upon as one of the elements of nature, out of the 5 elements. So unlike many other gods, it is something. It says Agni, oh Agni. I'll just give only the English translation instead of going into the Sanskrit. The truthful, most glorious Lord of the house. It says it's also Lord of your own house where you live. O Agni, the radiant one, to whom the holy oil is poured. When you prepare, that Homa or Ahuti, that is called, you keep pouring oil or ghee. To the dispeller of the night, O Agni, day by day with prayer we come, be to us easy of approach, even as a father to his son. Agni, be with us for our welfare. Give us a share of strength that is above, a share of strength that is below, a share of strength that is in between. May this, O God, great, limitless, excellently bright, urge us to become stronger and holy, bestow us on us stronger and holy thought. So it is, while we're all scared of fire and fire should not occur, but let us also think of fire or Agni in a very positive sense and invoke Agni so that such it is, we don't see the destructive nature of fire, and we always think of the positive nature of light. And I do hope the whatever steps that Beyond Carlton is taking will certainly move us to greater light than destructive fire. Congratulations to you, and thanks to you.